Welcome to our pointer strategies and interventions to address mental health concern, presented by our SUSD Mental Health and Behavior Support Services mental health clinicians. My name is Helen Nguyen. I will be your moderator today. And as a result of COVID-19 pandemic, everyone have been greatly impacted by it, emotionally and mentally. We want to address some of these concerns and the anxiety and fear, as well as how we can cope with it when we return back to school, whether it's going to be virtually or physically. So let me introduce you to our mental health clinicians, Tamara Smith, Manjit Bilanger, and Catherine Thiel, who will be discussing our pointers, strategies, and interventions to address the topic of fears and anxiety returning back to school. So I understand that parents and staff may have a lot of uncertainty and concern for our student. So let's start with a question of what are the fear and anxiety with returning back to school at this time. Catherine, can you elaborate more on what is expected or unexpected when we return?
Yes, if students are returning to school in brick and mortar, they could be worried about wearing masks, social distancing, contracting the virus. They'll be adjusting to the school environment again, which may be more structured. They may be worried about their family or thinking about things that occurred while they were out of school. If they are in the virtual learning environment, they may be avoiding engagement, they may be walking away, they may be turning off their video or not participating. The technology might be hard for them or might make them feel embarrassed or self-conscious. Either setting, students may demonstrate stress with somatic complaints, meaning they might complain about stomach aches or headaches. They may have trouble with sleeping, and they may be more irritable. And I'm going to turn it to Tamara.
Thank you, Catherine. Again, it is very important to know that when a kiddo is scared, worried, nervous, or anxious about any situation, anxiety and these fears creep in. So when a kid is already having anxiety, and they will, and stressors as they return to school, due to just school itself, the expectations they have on themselves or that they're thinking that others are placing on them, going to a different grade level. And then on top of all of this, of course, they're adjusting to the COVID, social distancing, and wearing a mask. Not all kids, of course, will react the same in these situations, but I'm going to give some information about how some of them may react. Some will either do fight, flight, or flee. So if they're going to fight because of this anxiety or this nervousness, they're going to have explosive outbursts, temper tantrums. They'll talk back, yell, scream, become argumentative, confrontational, disrespectful, and disruptive in the class, or literally they will fight. If they're doing the flight reaction, a lot of kids, and I know we've seen this a lot, is that they'll elope, they'll run away, they'll run out of the classroom. They'll have obsessive thinking, impulsive behaviors, panicking. You will see some of that, hyperactivity, running around, being overwhelmed, and over-worrying, just thinking and thinking and thinking about stuff. And then if they're freezing, then they can withdraw. They will shut down, ignore. And then if they're doing it virtually, then maybe sometimes they can put their head over the covers over their head, anything over their head. And then they can also turn off the video so that they won't show their faces.
And I know that children and adults cope differently when it comes to anxiety or fear. As you mentioned earlier, stressor and triggers vary amongst everyone. I know that social distancing and wearing masks, as well as the social engagement, will be a concern. Can you address some of the coping strategy and how it would look like in a school structure environment so that it can be used to deal with some of the stressor or fear that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I think with what Tamara was talking about earlier, what we might see, how students are presenting themselves with outburst or freezing. I think it's important that we want to focus on trying to open up communication, having a dialogue about what their fears are, providing activities such as like a workbook on COVID-19 social stories so they can write down exactly what's going on and be able to express that and get it out of them. Some coping strategies that children can use, they can be either good or bad. So as Tamara mentioned earlier, you may have a child who uses distraction, and that might work in one instance, but then there may be times if they're doing that over and over again, they're not actually dealing with what's really bothering them. So one may see behaviors such as running away, hiding, anger outburst, acting out, shutting down, physical symptoms such as stomach aches, headaches, just expressing they just want to go home. So we want to understand how their current emotion may affect them also if they have existing health issues as well. So to be prepared and have some kind of safety plan in place to prepare for any kind of crisis situation that may come up unexpectedly. And that may involve having a staff that relates to them in a better situation than another staff. So if they're always going to maybe a yard duty person or communicate better with the vice principal, those may be people who you want to send to if there's a crisis, as well as there's on-site mental health clinician or a school counselor present. So I think, you know, just knowing who that child relates to best would be the way to address some of that. And I'll turn it back to you, Helen.
Thank you, Manjeet. So moving on to our last sections, Catherine, can you address some of the interventions that we can use to address the fear and anxiety returning back to school?
Yes, I think it's going to be very important this year for teachers to demonstrate that everything is okay, especially with our little ones. They're going to be looking to the teacher, and if the teacher is calm and confident and acting like everything is okay, that's going to help them also feel that they're okay and that they're safe. So if teachers are feeling stressed or anxious, it's going to be important for teachers to practice their own self-care, their own stress management, so that they can be the calming presence in the classroom. It's going to be important, as always, to have safe, predictable classes, emotionally safe, physically safe, and predictable, because so many things have been out of control and changing. It's going to be important to have a predictable school day. It's also going to be extra important this year to spend time building relationships with students. So normally in the first few weeks of school, teachers go through their procedures and their routines, and adding in time for talking, building relationship, if it's circles, if it's check-ins, these little things during the day that can help build relationship between teacher and students with each other is going to be important in building their emotional safety, and so they feel supported and safe in class. And one of the ways that we could do this is learning their interests, such as like with the survey. They could learn about the interests of the students and then incorporate that in the classroom. And I'm going to turn it back over to Tamara.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so like Catherine mentioned, surveys are an excellent introductory intervention as the kiddos are returning to the learning environment. And these surveys will depend entirely on what the teacher thinks is the most prevalent things needed to help engage their students. Because as we found is that the kids are definitely not feeling engaged, or they weren't engaged as they could have been during this COVID time. And so really being able to figure out some of the strategies and some of the interventions, that's really going to help them to get more involved in their learning. So some suggested survey ideas could be, again, as Catherine mentioned, finding out what their interests are. What expectations do they have of the school year? You know, even if they are younger or smaller, they still can have some expectations of what they want to see happen. Ways that will help them perform better. You know, what's going to make you get involved? What are you going to do to participate? What kind of supports do they need? You know, some of the older kids may know that they need tutoring, but some of the little ones may not. But at least offering and figuring out on the survey, what can we offer them? Some quiet time. Little ones often need the quiet time, some space, some away time, you know, or what they call me time. And then also then there's what kinds of emotional and mental supports that they may need to help them excel, you know, to help them understand why they're so frustrated, why they're feeling like they need to leave the classes, why do they need to run away, and on and on. So those are just some of the things I think that would be an excellent way to begin this new year for them, from coming from this COVID environment, to really kind of sit down and figure things out. And the teachers are always the best source for them to kind of come back and figure this stuff out. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Manjeet to talk about the helpful self-care tips.
Thanks, Tamara. So as Tamara pointed out, we want to be aware of what the students' needs are going to be, but also important is to find some helpful self-care tips for yourself, which we can guide you to our website on this district website for under mental health behavioral support services. We have Mindfulness Mondays. They can help you to recharge yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally, having a healthy bedtime routine, learning breathing techniques that can help reduce your own stress and anxiety, and grounding techniques. So it's important to take care of ourselves so we can help others take care of them. And some of the things that I would suggest maybe is getting out and just get some body movement, walking, running, dance, yoga. You may not be able to, if you can't do it physically by going to a yoga studio, you can go on websites and learn and participate along with like YouTube. Eating healthy snacks, making sure you're drinking plenty of water, it's still warm outside, getting social support, connecting with others. So even we can't maybe meet with other people right now, but we can do it through Zoom. Maybe getting together, planning a night with your friends on a Zoom meeting, and doing mindfulness. There's different apps out there like Calm. Some of them don't charge right now, so those can be helpful. Listening to your favorite music, making a list of what you're passionate about and your interest as well, and just pampering yourself, I think is going to be really important to help all of us get through these unprecedented times. And Helen, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, absolutely. Thank you, Manjeet. Thank you, Tamara, and thank you, Catherine. So that ends today's presentations on addressing the fear, anxiety, returning back to school. So please join us for our upcoming presentations on pointers, strategy, and interventions addressing how to respond to student concern in our next video. And thank you.